Good afternoon, everybody. Well, today we're going to continue our conversation with regards to working with first-time buyers or any buyers. This morning at 10 o'clock, we had a class with Ritu, with Calco's Financial, talking about down payment assistance program. There are programs out there if you're a first-time buyer. What is a first-time buyer? It's someone who does not own a primary residence in the last 5 years. So if you bought something a couple of years ago, you sold it, now you've been renting the last 3 years, you are technically a first-time buyer again, which means that there are some programs out there that will avail you of some resources. In this case, this morning at 10 o'clock, we talked about down payment assistance. So if someone has zero money, zero down, right, or 3%, 5%, 10% down, they can get assistance from the county or from the state with different programs. So make sure you talk to Ritu, watch the training video, which we will send out later tonight. So you'll have it by tomorrow. Basically, why do you need the down payment assistance? Well, that is the number one reason why buyers really can't afford to buy is typically down payment, right? By having a larger down payment, your payments become less, which means that you require less income to qualify for that loan. As we said, there are 4 things that are important when you're buying a home: credit, capacity or income, right? So that's the second C. Income, that means your ability to repay the loan. Number 3, it's capital, also called down payment. And of course, number 4 is collateral, which is the property. The property must appraise. There must be value in the property in order for the lender to loan. So credit, capacity, capital, and collateral, okay? So that's what we discussed this morning is the down payment assistance. At the 12 o'clock market pulse, we discussed some different other things, right? Understanding that that homes are selling, values are stable, and even some are going down, some are going up. You just need to know which areas. So we talked about brand new home developments. As a realtor, you should know where these are, that are where you're buying, where you're selling typically, so your buyers can learn from you where these homes are, because sometimes buyers don't know that there are brand new homes is available, not just in our area, but out of area. So we talked about some people have sold one in Roanoke Park, Manteca, Lathrop, Newark, and all the other areas, right? Milpitas. Just know where these are so that way you can spread the news, because our job is to make sure that the clients know where these inventory is, just like not just resales, okay? All right, so let's talk about a couple forms that I wanted to make sure you guys know. All right, so let me share my screen. So my screen here, let's log on to car.org, okay? So I use zip forms, so you guys should have access to zip forms, okay? This is what it looks like, okay? Angela, if you're not seeing what I'm talking about, just let me know. So I'm logging onto CAR to get into zip forms. Sometimes when I switch windows, it does not comply, so I have to reset. Okay? So now you should see zip forms coming on your screen, okay? Angela, I'm assuming you use zip forms, right? So if you're not seeing zip forms, please speak up. So let me just double check and restart. Okay. So you should see zip forms, right? So this should look familiar to you and everybody else. Let's look at the forms. So there are 5 main forms that I want you guys to download and review and read, right? So if we look at documents, okay? So the very first document that I want you guys to know is, as you know, we're making a lot of contingent or non-contingent offers. So the first thing is the non-contingent advisory, NCOA, right? So if you look at this, this is basically, there are 5 main contingencies in the contract, okay? Typically, it's loan contingency, appraisal contingency, the investigation, and the insurance contingency. Now, in between there, we have the approval of the seller disclosures contingency, right? So again, loan, appraisal, investigations, approval of the seller disclosures, and of course, insurance contingency. These are the 5 main ones. These can be broken down to different things. You can also add to different contingencies, like subject to me getting my lawyer approval. subject to finding out if the kitchen faces north, east, south, west, whatever, right? Or subject to investigating schools, right? So again, there's different things that you can do with regards to this. Okay? So make sure loan appraisal, investigations, approval of disclosures, and of course the insurance, right? Now, sometimes if there's an HOA, it's approving the HOA documents, which is part of the disclosures and also the investigation contingency. So make sure you understand what the contingencies are. Please download this form. It's called the Non-Contingent Offer Advisory, and okay, NCOA, right? Okay. The next form that I want to discuss with you guys is the contingency removal, right? So there are two types of contingency removal. One is for the buyer, and one is for the seller, right? Yeah. Okay. So, seller. Okay. All right. So here is the seller contingency removal. Okay. So there's one for the seller. And the main thing that the seller has is what they call a contingency to purchase. Okay. So we'll talk about that. But this is the CRS. Okay. So contingency removal for the seller. I know it says seller contingency, so it's kind of reverse. The acronyms are in reverse. But this is contingency removal, okay, for the seller. Okay. And then there's the contingency removal for the buyer, CRB, right? Now, there are three choices that you have to really look at. You're removing contingencies either as number two, individually, right? Or number three, by removing all contingencies with with exceptions, okay? So you can do it individually or everything with an exception, or number four, removing all contingencies. So please make sure you read all of this and understand what is the difference between 2, 3, and 4. Now, the other thing that I wanted to discuss is most people have not seen this, where it's a contingency of the buyer selling their old property, right? So if let's say you meet a buyer today, they said, yeah, we want to move up typically. Okay. Typically it's a move up buyer where they have to sell their old house to buy a new house. Okay. So when that happens, there is a form that you need called the COP form. Okay. So let's look at that, the COP form. So the COP form looks like this. It says contingency for sale of buyer's property, COP. Now, someone says, where's the O? Right? Okay. Is the of, okay? So again, it's not always, word for word acronym, right? Each letter means something. But the COP is contingency of sale, technically, right? Okay. Okay, so again, this is if you have a buyer that has a house to sell. Hopefully that makes sense. Completing it is pretty simple. I want you guys to practice completing it. It's pretty easy. On one, it's either A, B, or C, right? And then 2 and 3, just fill in the blanks as required, as necessary. The most important thing on this form is number 7, which talks about the seller's right to cancel. Okay, so make sure you're going to need to check on C. It's either 1, 2, or 3. So number 7 is very critical, and also number 11, okay, on page 2, because number 11 talks about timelines, okay, for removing contingencies and also putting the deposit into escrow. Number 7 and 11 are very critical, so make sure you understand it. Please read it, okay, and come back with questions to us. The other one is, which is more rare than that, is when a seller says, hey, I will only sell my house if and when I find the next house, okay? So this is where they can create a contingency that says, hey, I don't want to be homeless. I want to make sure I find a replacement property. This is typically common when you're doing a 1031 exchange, or when it's a rental property, to buy another rental property. Because sometimes buying another house or buying another rental, when you do a 1031 exchange, it's not as easy, okay? There might be some waiting time to get into contract. So make sure you understand what this form says, okay? The most important part here is number 1, It's either going to be A or B or C. Okay, so make sure you read that. Okay. Number 2 just talks about timelines, just like number 11 on the COP form. So please review these 5 forms, right? Let's review real quick. The non-contingent offer advisory, NCOA, right? It's an advisory, so there's really nothing to fill out besides the buyer needs to sign. The seller contingency compared to the buyer contingency removal forms, right? This used to be just one form. Now they split it up, so there's no confusion. Is it a buyer one or is it a seller one? Okay. So again, that's how you remove contingencies. You have not removed contingencies until this form is filled out by either party and then acknowledged by the other party. Of course, contingency for sale of buyer's property. This is when a buyer has a house to sell, right? Typically a move-up buyer. Could be a move-down buyer, but basically it's I'll sell it or I need to buy it before I can sell, right? Okay, or excuse me, I need to sell something before I can buy your house, okay? And then the opposite of that is when you have a seller contingency where they say, hey, I will only sell if I find a replacement house because I don't want to be homeless, all right? Now, there are several solutions to the transaction besides putting this form in. You can have longer rent backs, right? Things like that. So when you have a, not necessarily a problem, but to where you have situations where you don't know what to do or how to accomplish something, make sure you reach out to us, your leadership team, so we can help you, guide you along that process. All right, so hopefully that makes sense, right? 5 forms: NCOA, CR-B, CR-S for the seller, CRB for the buyer, and of course, there's the COP when a buyer has a house to sell before they can buy. And then there's the SPRP is when a seller, wants to buy before they will sell their old house. Okay, timing is critical, so we need to be able to understand what everybody's situation is, so we can properly guide them. Timing is very critical with these 2 deals. All right. So, any questions at all I could answer? Anything on your mind regarding those forms? Angela, Syed, Carolyn, Lena? Anything whatsoever you guys can ask away. We're good on the forms. Hopefully you guys understand the forms. Please download the forms through Zip Forms or Glide, review it, fill it out as if you have a client, as if you are buying the house or selling a house. Do you know how to fill out that form? Because the clients are counting on us to know how to fill out the form and then explaining to them how to protect their interests, right? So, any questions on the forms or any of the other forms whatsoever? Are we good? And we're going to wrap up this call here. Okay. As we said before, at 10 o'clock this morning, we talked about down payment assistance, how to help first-time buyers with their down payment to lower their payments so they can qualify for more higher price homes, or at least get into a home. All right. So there's several programs out there for Alameda County, Santa Clara counties specifically, and then of course Contra Costa. And now there are different city programs also that's available, and there's also CalHAFA, which is statewide. So, questions, Syed?
Yes, you get my email?
Yes, I did. Looks good so far. I'll review it one more time before I touch base with you later today. Okay?
Okay, that's good. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Anything else? We're good? All right, so let's do this. I'm going to pick on Syed since he volunteered. So Syed sent me a contract, right? I hope you guys know how to complete your contract. Syed, do you mind if I share it with everybody?
No problem. Go ahead.
Perfect. Okay, so now let's learn together, right? So Syed sent me a purchase agreement, right? So he's writing an offer for his client. So let's look for it. I think this is the one. Okay. Do you see the contract, Syed?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So the first part of any contract is the disclosure of agency. Basically, this explains what our duties are to each party, right? Not necessarily who we are representing, but basically what are our duties as a buyer agent, as a seller agent, and also dual agency. Very easy, right? So on the first page, you just fill out the buyer's name. They sign your information, right? Like just like that, Syed. Perfect. Okay. The second page is just the the civil code for agency relationships. All right, so let's get to the meat of the purchase agreement. So there's the purchase contract. You guys can see this. Okay, perfect. Syed, there are 4 buyers. So you know where to put the buyers, right? By clicking where the names are. Okay, because on the cover sheet is only limited to 2, right? You filled out the top agency. There's different agents. So therefore it's seller exclusive, buyer exclusive. Perfect. Okay. So you're putting an offer for 1.2 million, right? With a 30-day closing. The EMD is 1% instead of 3%, right? So I'm assuming either they don't want to put more or they don't have the money yet.
Yeah, it could be more, but
okay. So most likely you're probably going to get a counter because if you make an offer on my listing, you're going to get a counter the EMD to be 3%, unless there's a specific reason. Now, there could be different reasons, right? Either they're not, it's not liquid, it's coming as a gift, it's somewhere else, or they just don't want to put it in jeopardy, right?
That's exactly what it is. The money comes from gifts, so
yeah,
we haven't trusted.
Okay, so again, we need to know where the money is coming from. So there's usually a good explanation in, like in this case, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at this, this is an 80% loan to value. What does that mean? They're putting 20% down, right? Is the whole 20% gift or only the 1%, Syed?
The whole 20% is gift.
Okay, the whole, is it 40? 20%.
Yeah, they have about $40,000 on their
account. Okay, so the 20% is a gift. Now, so my question is the person gifting it, is it already on the buyer's account, or is they're waiting it from mom and dad to send it? What's going on?
They're one of the buyers.
Okay, so if it's one of the buyers, then it's not a gift, right? A gift is basically when the money's coming from not these 4 people. So if it's coming from one of these 4 people, it is not a gift.
It's being discussed with Shayestas right now, so we're working on it, trying to figure out how to deal with it.
Okay. All right, because if it is a gift, right, you probably need to put something in the contract that says, the down payment is a gift,
right,
and then show proof that the gifter has the money. And is there a letter saying that this is a gift, it is not a loan, right? Because the lender's going to want to see that. And then, of course, we need to make sure that is the gifter, is it in their account, or do they need to sell stock still, right? And then gift the money. So there's different things that you may want to add as contingencies. So that's why I'm asking Syed these questions. So that way we need to clarify, because if I'm the listing agent, I'm asking the buyer agent these questions. Like, where's the money coming from? Why isn't it there, right? Do they have a gift letter, or is this a contingency that, subject to mom giving the money to the son, right? Again, if you don't put contingencies like we talked about earlier, then the deposit, the EMD, is in jeopardy.
Right.
All right. So just remember that, guys. Okay. So great job. So 20% down. There's a purchase price of 1.2. Now let's talk about closing costs and timelines, right? So here on G1, buyer's not asking for any credit for closing costs. On G3, Syed is asking to get paid, right? Seller to pay the obligation on the buyer representation agreement typically, right? Now it doesn't say how much it is here, so we're going to look at the SPBB form that Syed filled out shortly, right? So everything else is as it shows, right? Everything is attached to the offer, approval funds, right? Pre-approval, right? What type of pre-approval do you have, Syed? Pre-qualification, pre-approval, or fully underwritten pre-approval? So you need to.
We're working right now. Hopefully by the end of the day, I get the fully underwritten pre-approval.
So make sure you check this. And if you don't check it, right? Most seller agents can assume that it's just a pre-qualification. And again, the stronger your buyer is, you should have a fully underwritten pre-approval. Okay, which happens more than 50% of the time, guys. Okay, timing here is just like Syed has been taught. Good training, right? Very good student. So please read what these timelines mean. Okay. Remember earlier we had the CRB, right? The contingency removal by the buyer. We're going to see what Syed did. Okay. So make sure you check that box, because according to this, Syed is removing certain contingencies. We just don't know which one. So everything else here is templated. There's a recording on my email that says how to create your templates, how to update your templates. Please review those. Okay. And that will explain why Syed has 1 days on N1, 2, 3, and 4, right? So let's look at the third page. All right, so the top of the page on P1, Syed has checked what the buyer wants as included in the purchase price. So just take a look at it, make sure the proper boxes are checked, okay? And then Q are basically talks about closing costs, who's paying what, right? So just review it, and if you have questions, call me. I'm not going to review every single one to try to explain it. It's in the recordings, okay? So make sure you look at our Team Terra YouTube channel, or just click on the links in my emails. So everything is pretty standard. Good job, Syed, right? Everything's pretty standard. There's really nothing else I can say. You followed your templates, perfect, right? The only other thing that I would probably mention, Syed, is regarding your home warranty. What type of extra coverage do you want? And make sure the cost, reflects that, right? Because if you want washer, dryer, refrigerator coverage, things like that. Because what I always suggest on the home warranty is to get the comprehensive plus plan from Fidelity. Again, you have that choice to do. Okay, so just double check on that. When I said Syed, I'm talking about everybody. Okay, so this is not just Syed that I'm talking about, but again, that's why it's important that you know how to complete the forms. Okay, so after page 3, it's pretty much just double checking everything. Okay, so there's really nothing here. It's not a probate. It's not a manufactured home. So none of these 4A, B, or C applies, except what he was already checked as part of the advisories and disclosures, right? So just take a look at it. All right, so I'm going to skip to the end. All right, so Syed, there's really nothing else to fill out on 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? Everything else is just explanations, okay? Syed?
Yeah.
Okay, so nothing there, right? So now I'm looking for is the SPBB, right? So here on liquidated damages and arbitration, buyer has the option, and if seller agrees or not. So, all right. So now let's look at the SPBB. Right? So these are just disclosures as part of the contract. Fair housing. Make sure you guys know and don't break fair housing laws. All right. Regarding the homeowner's insurance, wire fraud. Okay. Oh, okay. So on this package, I didn't see the SPBB. Did you attach it?
It's basically, I thought it will attach automatically. When you check market, it automatically attaches, but apparently didn't. So
okay. Okay. So in there, Syed's going to put what commission he expects, hoping it's 3%, right, or whatever he's willing to negotiate. Other than that, the contract is pretty much a done deal. If you do the templates, you're 90% there. Syed is 99.99% there. There's just a couple of things that he can improve on. Bottom line is, guys, the contract is easy to fill out. Just read it as if you are the buyer yourself. Fill it out. Practice the e-signing, the digital signing, electronic signature, right? Another word for it. Send it to me or your manager. Let's see what it is, or open up another personal email, and then send it to yourself so you know what your clients are seeing, right? Don't practice on your client, although sometimes you end up doing it. Practice now with yourself. It's like role playing and practice. All right. So great job, Syed.
Thank you.
Any questions, comments about the contracts, filling it out, right? Zip Forms or Glide is your platforms. They're basically the same database. It's just a matter of different platforms, meaning different interface, right? So questions,
hey,
Carolyn.
Are these forms supposed to be added to the templates too, the ones that you just discussed today?
It's not necessary. You need to know what they are. You can put it on the templates if you want. I don't typically have it on my template, except on this training, because you're not going to use it all the time. So I won't suggest it to be on your purchase or listing template.
Okay.
You need to know what it is, right? The contingency removal, yes, right? The non-contingent advisory, if that's your normal buyer representation does usually. As far as the COP and the SPRP, it's not on my template. You can certainly put it, but it's not necessary. Some people do add it, so that way they don't have to remember what it is, right? So they're used to seeing it whenever they do a transaction. So, but that is optional. So questions, comments, anything else? We're good? Lena, Angela, Syed, anything else?
Appreciate the review.
You're welcome. So again, practice it now, practice filling it out, practice doing the digital signature. So that way, when you have a real client, you can easily do it. You're not trying to find one of your leaders and say, hey, how do you do it? How do you do this, right? Now you know how to do it. Practice, practice, practice. So anything else before we wrap up? We're good this afternoon? All right, Lena?
Thank you, Greg.
Welcome.
I came in late on this meeting, so I'll review some stuff later.
Perfect. Okay, so look for the email in the morning, right? Every
Great.
morning, there's usually other recordings, and typically it's from the last day or from the previous week. So just make sure you read down my email. I know sometimes we just read the first part of the email and we forget to scroll down. Sometimes the emails are like 2-3 pages long, depending on how big your screen is. And if you're reading it from the phone, it's a lot of multiple pages. All right.
Okay.
So get past the first page of the email. All right, guys. So again,
Wonderful. Thank you.
you're welcome. Again, if there's anything whatsoever, reach out to one of us, your leadership team, and ask away. Remember, better questions get better answers. So ask better questions. All right. What I mean by that is don't just say, hey, what do I do next? It's how do I do this? Right. Again, let us know what you're trying to accomplish, so that way we can teach you better and you learn better that way. Okay, so great job, Syed, on the contract. Keep practicing, everybody. If you haven't written a contract, you got to be doing one every single day, because when you're out of practice, you start to forget things because you're either getting better or getting worse, right? So it's like if you don't exercise, you're probably something else is going to happen, right? So do the work, get it done every day. We'll see you guys tomorrow at 10 o'clock. I believe it should be at 10 o'clock unless something else happens with my schedule today. But 10 o'clock tomorrow, we're going to be talking about understanding 1031 exchanges, working with investors. So if you have questions about that, start writing it down, start texting it to me or yourself so you'll remember on the call. Other than that, we'll see you guys tomorrow, either going to be at 10 o'clock or at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, okay? It's not going to be both, because tomorrow I have a conflict on my schedule. So it's either going to be 10 or 2. Check your email at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. That's usually when I send my emails. Other than that, reach out and touch someone. All right? All right, everybody. Have a great rest of your afternoon. Call me if you have any questions.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.